Hey, Water Coolians, welcome back to another episode of Water Cooler Talk. Today on the podcast, we are joined by Robin and Jamie, host of If These Ovaries Could Talk, to talk about important issues happening in our world. Like, did some people get a bit too outraged over a name change for a potato? Or should we try to ruin an 8-year-old's life because she happened to say she had a crush on another girl at recess? The answer seems obvious, but Oklahoma has another idea. And today in this episode, it's been on my mind here for a while, specifically with all the things happening in the news these days, with, specifically from these stories that we discuss in this episode. I want to ask something from you, listener, that is very, very important to me. You may not be responsible for this. If you are, take that responsibility. But your family members, friends, coworkers, etc. may be, and they need a helping hand seeing the light. Lead them in looking past the headline. Help them find resources that allow them to have a clear picture of a situation. Heck, vacuum their house for them so they have an extra 10 minutes to actually read a frickin' complete article and form their own opinion. I don't think it's unrealistic when I say misinformation will be a downfall of humanity. All the proof that you need is that people are getting hurt right now because of misinformation. Even though we have a world of knowledge at our fingertips, we continue to avoid the responsibilities of that power. Uncle Ben said it best. We're not being our best Spider-Man right now. We'd rather be first than be right. And people are getting hurt because of that. Movements that should be changing society just become another casualty of the boy who cried wolf. Ask people to be better. Ask yourself to be better. Take that extra second, minute, hour, day, week, month, whatever it needs to be to get a clear picture. You're not always going to be perfect, but the fact that you actually care to try matters. We have a chance every day to avoid the mistakes of yesterday, but you know what? If we keep making those mistakes, nothing's going to change. And we're going to continue to have these same freaking conversations over and over again. And you know what? As a content creator who needs the content, I'll take that. I'll be able to continue to speak to wonderful and amazing people like Robin and Jamie. But I also want the conversation to move forward, and we can do that with your help. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, this is Water Cooler Talk episode 61 titled Potato Head Universe with If These Ovaries Could Talk. Enjoy.
This is the story of a podcast that takes weird news from across the world. And while many of these stories may seem fake, they're absolutely not, because they're real.
I have written down in my notes, Robin, just to let you know, I wear glasses. I'm wearing contacts right now, but in my notes, Robin, for you, I have, she wears glasses.
That's me.
And I want to.
You can. In about
I
5 years, you will
Robin's.
be wearing them. In about 5 years.
Because I look smarter when I have them on.
Of course. But growing up, I know as someone who wore glasses, I was always known as the glasses person in the group. Like that's how people identified with me.
The kid with the glasses.
That's Glasses Adam.
That's so fun. I think because my mom always had glasses, I don't notice when people wear glasses. I don't, I wouldn't have noticed that you had glasses on today. You know what I mean? Like, I don't notice it.
Have you ever worn glasses in your life, Jamie?
No.
So maybe you have to have that instance of wearing glasses to understand glass wearers.
Maybe that's
All right,
it.
well, you both ready to jump into our first news story, talk about Mr. Potato Head?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right, this is actually, listeners, this is actually a viewer-submitted topic by Anita Dury of the U.S., so thank you, Anita. I know sometimes I ask for viewer-submitted stories, but sometimes if you just want to talk about a specific topic, send me the topic, and I'll find a new story to fit. So thank you, Anita. This is titled, Mr. Potato Head Drops the Mister. Sort of. Hasbro, the company responsible for teaching you firsthand how greed can tear apart those families with the classic board game Monopoly, created confusion earlier in the year by announcing its plans to drop the Mr. from the Mr. Potato Head brand name in order to be more inclusive. Hasbro did clarify that while the brand is changing, the actual Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head characters will still live on and be sold in stores. In a tweet they posted, well, it was announced today that the Potato Head brand name and logo are dropping the Mr. I am, and that was the actual typo in this tweet. I don't know if it was done on purpose, but I am proud to confirm that Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head aren't going anywhere and will remain Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head. Robert Pasikoff, founder of the marketing consultancy Brand Keys, said, they're looking to broaden their franchise. You take the focus of what is essentially one character and now allow it to be a platform for many characters. Following the news of the branding change, many took to Twitter to voice their opinions, including asking if Barbie will have to be the next one to change her name. And one user even tweeted, I think Hasbro needs to drop the bro and just be Has. I do want to. I want to start pointing this out. Whenever we have a Twitter outrage on the show, only 3% of the world's population actively uses Twitter on a day-to-day basis. So Twitter is not the voice of the people. I just want to make that very clear every time we mention Twitter on the show. Toy makers have been updating their classic brands in recent years, hoping to relate to today's kids and reflect more modern families. Ali Mirzayetzky, editor-in-chief at the Toy Insider, said, "It's a potato. But kids like to see themselves in the toys that they're playing with." Rich Ferraro, GLAAD's chief communication officer, said, "Hasbro is helping kids to simply see toys as toys, which encourages them to be their authentic selves outside of the pressure of traditional gender norms." So I want to ask the both of y'all, should this have been a big of a controversy as outraged Twitter wanted it to make it seem like it was?
I mean, the ridiculous thing is they said they're going to take the gender out, and then they said, no, wait, we're not going to take the gender out. So it's ridiculous anyway. And then for people to get up in arms about it, nothing was changed. They just added some characters to the lineup, basically. All the people who need to get all up in arms over this gender stuff just need to get up in arms over gender stuff. Like they just can't handle the gender stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, but in the article, they talk about Hasbro wanting to have it both ways because then they were like, hold on, we still have the Mr. Potato and we still have the Mrs. Potato. Don't worry, everybody. We're not getting rid of the straights.
We're not going super, non-binary.
Yeah,
here.
exactly.
We're not going to that side. Like it's just like, dip your toe in and then dip it back out and hope that both teams take it.
Yeah.
Like I don't.
It feels like a marketing ploy more than anything. It's like, I mean, it's like
to
I'm
sell
all
more
for
toys.
Yeah, and I'm all for inclusivity. It's
Agreed.
nice when they recognize that like a little kid who has two dads is going to now be able to make two dads, which he could have before, but he would have had to have bought two Mr. Potato Heads, I
Right.
guess.
I mean,
So it's nice for that sense, but
true story. My mother-in-law, who is super Catholic, and like it took her a long time to adjust to the gay mom thing, and me being the in-law, the daughter-in-law, that when she was supposed to have a son-in-law, she called me like a month ago and said, "Listen, I want you to buy the new Potato Head dolls." For Orion, my 3-year-old, because he can make two moms out of like she was.
Oh, that's so
it was
cute.
a really sweet thing. And then I had to look and see that they're not coming out until the summer. So I was like, sorry, Marge, I can't buy them. But that is so nice. Yes, I'll definitely get them, and I'll get them from
That's
you.
so cute. She came around like that.
Really sweet, really sweet.
But I think we're not addressing the real controversy in the article. And when I read it, I was very shocked and upset. Is that when Mr. Potato Head originally came out, it didn't come with a potato.
Wait.
You had to use your own potato.
You had to
It's my
get your
favorite
own
things. I was
physical
gonna say this
potato.
too.
Yes,
I was saving this.
I stole your
that was
joke,
the
Jamie.
best
I stole
part.
your joke,
That was
Jamie.
the best part of this article is that when it first came out, you
just-
used a real potato.
Which, by the way, is so creepy.
Genius.
All I can see is my kids
Genius.
like with some old potato under the bed with like a plastic mustache on it, like just being like, "It's Dad," and it's like
Oh my
like
God.
creepy
This
things,
is how
spud things
different
growing
we are,
out of it.
because I was like, oh my God, that's my next rainy day activity. I'm about to go get some potatoes out
An
of the
actual
fridge.
Mr. Potato.
I'm just imagining Toy Story, the movie. Now, Mr. Potato Head is an actual potato.
I know,
they
right?
Need to do a short where Mr. Potato Head is questioning.
He comes to life like Pinocchio.
it's questioning their gender.
Can you imagine how? But that would piss people off.
Well, that's the other thing. It's like potatoes don't have gender, so why does it matter if it's a Mr., a Mrs., whatever?
And why does it matter, like, what a kid does with it? You know what I mean? Like, if they take it and they make it into a dad or they make it into a mom, like, who really cares?
Like the whole
you know
fun
what I mean?
of those things is you put the eyes where the nose should be, and you put the
And you like
ear-
make them upside down so their butt looks like, so,
it's
yeah,
like,
it's
so,
a butt.
look, he's got a butt
Yeah.
face. Like that's the fun of.
That's how kids are really using it. But I think your point is really true. Is like, they're not mad about the potatoes. They're mad about what they think is in a company bending to the politics of the liberal left.
of us LGBTQ,
And then we're trying to make every
out
kid
to
gay.
ruin the world. That's the problem.
I think, a lot of these people that are mad, they're looking for something to prove that they should be mad. They're looking for that confirmation bias. If you read this story, obviously you look at the headline and you're like, oh, they're canceling Mr. Potato Head. But really, they're just changing the branding to, I think as we can kind of see through the BS here, is to sell more toys. Because at the end of the day,
Yes.
it's these companies, what are they being authentic for? Are they being authentic to be authentic, or are they being authentic to include more people because that means more dollars? Is YouTube changing their logo for a day, or for a month, say recently for Black History Month, because they care about Black History Month, or because they know that will bring in more people? I hope, I always hope for the goodness in these big, huge companies, but it's not always the case.
This dials into the hope part, is they do stand to lose sales. Like there's the hardcore right, or maybe like Christians, or I don't want, not all Christians, but like the religious groups, but the religious right, or whomever
it is,
like might not be okay with it, and might
movement
now no longer. I was talking about Potato Head,
or Potato Head movement.
So I wasn't calling Christians against anti-BLM. I just want to be real clear about that. No, I was just saying like they might not buy the Potato Head if you come from a house that doesn't believe in gay families,
right.
And that's a risk. To me, that's when I think a company's doing something out of the goodness of their heart, because that is a risk.
Well, and to your point there, Robin, we look at, the makeup, I think like 4% or so of the population of the U.S. identifies with the LGBTQ, but obviously we know that to be the lower end, because a lot of people just haven't come out to identify with that. So it's like,
and that's increasing. There was just a study that just came out that said that there's a lot more millennials and younger people are identifying. So that number is going up.
But is this company Hasbro, are they coming out to change their marketing model to sell more to that 4% or whatever it is when we finally get those clear figures? Or are they just doing it to sell and be woke?
Right. Probably that. This particular story, though, is, yes, perhaps they thought, let's be woke. Let's be inclusive. That's a great idea. And then when they got the backlash, they were like, whoa. Let's dial it back, because we still want to keep those others on our side too. So they didn't go all the way with it. And so in that respect, you just like kind of caved, like you cowered.
No,
like you didn't.
They didn't, because they were never getting rid of us. They just, what they had is a bad comm. Like they had a bad person. It wasn't a great communication on your Twitter.
I guess, but what if they really wanted to go all the way and then they didn't?
But yeah, they're changing this branding to, especially in the modern age of like universes, like DC Universe, Marvel Universe. I honestly think they're pushing for like this Potato Head universe to be more inclusive. They're saying, well, instead of having it the Mr. Potato Head universe, let's have it the Potato Head universe. And then we can bring in all these new characters, like that one individual, Ali Mirzaetsky said. Now we can bring in all these characters, and it doesn't have to be limited by this Mr. Potato Head branding.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, but at the end of the day, it's really just a potato.
It is.
I mean, it's really just a
potato.
plastic toy your kid's going to play with for 4 seconds.
And you put some accessories on it to make it what you want. So it could all be the same. Just put all the accessories in the box and say, it could be a Mr., it could be a Mrs., it could be a them.
But then you only buy one. They want you to buy multiple.
But
they want you to, exactly. They want you to buy multiple different characters in this Potato Head universe, because eventually 20 years down the line, if there's a Mr. or if there's a Potato Head cinematic universe, I will email you guys and say, hey, I told you it was coming.
Well, I just want to be one of the voices of one of the characters.
I mean,
if
it
there's
could
a
happen.
Movie for the potatoes.
It could happen.
So I'll just pull for that. But at the end of the day, I want to say, again, it's just a potato.
But it's also not that it's not just a potato, but to a certain extent, like they didn't introduce, it's not like non-binary Barbie came out. They're literally just saying, hey, you could use our potato this way too. It's not even any different. You know what I mean? It's still the same product. All they did was drop the Mr. so you could use it however you want to. And that's the part that's so dumb about it. They did virtually nothing. But guess what? We're all sitting here talking about Mr. Potato Head.
Lots of
and I had forgotten about it.
A lot of controversy.
Well, that's the thing, Robin. When you buy a Barbie, you're buying a Barbie that has these feminine traits. When you're buying a G.I. Joe, you're buying a toy that has these male traits. But when you're buying I don't even know, you both have kids. Have you bought a Mr. Potato Head toy?
I never bought the Mr. Potato Head.
My kids have one at grandma's house.
But
this is a thing people are still buying.
Yeah, somebody bought it for them.
But do you buy a Mr. and a Mrs. separately?
No, it's just the one potato, and then it has female accessories and male accessories.
That's what's so dumb about
this. That's what I'm saying. It's literally
they're not even changing the product.
It's a potato, and it just comes with different accessories. Like, this is my point. It's just you're not changing anything.
All they did was
adding
take the
accessories.
name. They just took something out of the name. But it is amazing. Like, people could get outraged almost over anything.
Anything having to do with gender.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
I mean, it's
ridiculous. And that's like one of the things, we discuss a lot here at Water Cooler Talk is people like just looking at this headline and getting outraged because they have that hate, that anger already inside of them.
Yeah.
And like I said, they're just looking for that excuse to confirm that they should be mad and
Yes.
validate their beliefs.
Well, and then they take it and then they make some really big jump to like you are pushing your agenda on other kids. It's like it always goes to like
What?
marrying a goat. Like you
Yeah.
want to marry a
I know,
goat. And I was
always.
just like, do we?
We
No, I don't really
Where,
want.
how do we get there?
No one wants to marry a goat.
don't even
Nobody.
like goats.
Nobody wants to marry a
I
goat.
don't even like to look at them.
How do you get there? But they do. They just there's a fear that gets like a fear gets turned on, by a clickbait title,
And it's
and then the
tackled.
next step is like you're going to start teaching homosexuality in schools, and you want my kid to be gay. It's like they just go right there,
Which I
Like,
do,
don't-
and which we should.
I don't want anybody's kid to be gay unless that happens to be who they are. It's just like I know. But it's so
I want
funny.
everyone to be gay. Out
Jamie
there.
does a little bit.
I don't. I do think everyone is gay though.
Okay, I should yes.
My gaydar is very off.
Yeah, I think there's something that says like most people tend to be attracted to the same sex because like I'm very attracted to Ryan Gosling. He's a
who's
very
not?
attractive man.
He really is.
He's I.
Who's the other Ryan? Who's the other Ryan that I love? The funny
Ryan
one.
Reynolds?
Yes.
Oh, Ryan Gosling is also funny. You got to see he's hilarious.
He's like a subtler
triple
funny.
threat. He's a triple threat. He has everything going on
I think
for
I
him.
know him enough.
I mean, LA,
get to know
the
him.
LA
Get
Story
to know
movie.
him.
What was that called? LA.
La La Land.
Thank
La
you.
La Land.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I didn't see that.
But to the aspect of toys, both of you having families, what aspect do toys play in that development of your children? I remember growing up Hot Wheels and, race cars and G.I. Joes and all those things. And I looked at those things and I was like, these are what I'm supposed to be playing with. Now that's completely changing.
Well, I was just going to say, my kids were just drawn to what they were drawn to. It's like they have two moms who wear T-shirts. And we should clarify for your listeners that Jamie and I are not a couple. It's important.
No.
It's important that we clarify
Just
that.
partners in podcasting.
Just business partners.
Gay mom friends.
And so like my wife and I we're with like T-shirt wearers and we're not wearing ball gowns. And my daughter's the girliest of girls who was like she was doing her makeup school pictures today via FaceTime, which is weird in and of itself. So weird. But anyway, so while she's doing it, she was like, so you might say no, but what level of makeup can I wear?
God.
And she's 11. She was like, I'm assuming mascara is a no. I was like, yes, we're not doing mascara. She was like, lip gloss? I was like, definitely go for the lip. I mean, like she's just the girliest of girls. And my son is like a linebacker who's just punching things all the time. So we got these really two typically gendered kids. I don't know. That's just how it is. Like they came out who they were. I mean, maybe you could get into an argument over whether or not society teaches them these norms, but like I grew up in the same society and I didn't want any of that. So
Yeah.
Jamie, what about yourself? Yeah.
Yeah, because when my wife and I had our kids, we were hell bent on not gendering them in their clothing or gendering them with their toys. Like our first kid was a girl, and we made sure that she wasn't just wearing dresses, and we tried to get her. Like we put her in boy clothes too. We put her in boy and girl clothes. We gave her toys. We gave her trucks. We gave her cars. She's kind of like in the middle. She never really played with boy toys.
but she went straight to like cat ears, like nobody's
She
business.
loves cats. Like she's girly. She's girly, but she won't wear dresses now. So she's finding her own way, and she's not necessarily like she doesn't like play with boy. I'm putting that in quotes, but she's kind of down the middle. Like she goes back and forth. But then we have my son, and I was like, he's gonna wear purple, he's gonna wear pink, he's gonna, the child will only wear blue. You try to put another color on this child,
My son went through that with green.
and he throws a fit. He naturally gravitates, and we got him dolls. I mean, he has all his sister's toys lying around.
Mhm.
It's a house full of girl toys now because she's got dolls everywhere. And she's got a dollhouse, and he gravitates towards trucks and cars and balls. Anything. It's just so interesting. And I keep trying to push the dolls on him, but he's not interested. He likes what he likes, and that's what he likes. And he wants to kick the ball, and he wants to play catch. And I'm like, I don't really want to.
You're like,
but
gotta do a
okay.
musical.
Yeah, but it's really interesting. We didn't gender them in any way. We did an interview with the woman who wrote
Tomboy. Lisa Sellen Davis.
Lisa Sellen Davis. Really interesting book about how toys used to be toys and
They
clothing
were not gendered.
were not as gendered as they are now.
Yeah.
But corporate marketing has really started to gender them.
Well, because that gave them 2 markets. Then you couldn't, you said it was literally like, we don't want you to hand me down toys. We want you to be like, these are toys for girls, so that there's a double purchase, which
it's
is
Mr. and
gross.
Mrs. Potato Head. Like you said, Jamie, it's just a potato where you can put those things on, but we can sell 2 products now.
Exactly.
Yep.
So it's just really interesting. Legos, when we were young, were really just, there was nothing gendered about them. Now you have the Friends version of Legos,
Which is the
is for
girls.
the girls. And then you have like the boys version.
But
which
then
is
they
like
also brought in like
spaceships.
movies and everything. It's like they,
They,
you know,
like,
they
change-
just
when
all
it
marketing.
used to just be a bunch of pieces that you make things on it was a creative toy. But now you have to create the actual world that goes on the box. And like, they've changed everything up. So the bottom line, I think Robin and I both agree on, is you can try to not gender your children, but they're going to,
At least our kids did.
they're going to turn out how they're going to turn out. And neither one of us can say if it's because of what they saw in the world around them. Perhaps that really seeps into everybody.
Yeah.
Like you just can't avoid it. Even if you're teaching things at home, they're still going
television
out into
and
the
computer
world
and daycare
and seeing this confirmation that things should be gendered. So I don't know. It's really,
But I mean, when you look at it from the point of view of like, we both are 2 mom households, you tried really hard to like make them not have a gender. And I didn't really care. And my daughter was in princess dresses for 2 years because I had to create a thing called the base outfit, because otherwise she was going to be wearing these flimsy dresses everywhere in the world. And so I was like, no, you got to put your base. Every princess puts a base outfit on first. Then you put the princess dress over it. Cause it was like a costume, and she had hundreds of them. And she had one tattered one she wore for like a year until we were like, it needs to be burned. That didn't come from our house. I mean, maybe it came from TV. Maybe it came from daycare.
Really
Who knows?
Yeah.
But I feel like that is the same as if our kid had been like non-binary at that age. Like they know intrinsically who they are.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think.
They might not be able to describe it, but like you said, Robin, intrinsically, they know who they are, and that energy is going to be drawn towards what they like. Like, Jamie, you said your son likes blue. Maybe he's just someone who likes blue. As someone with blue eyes, I know blue makes my eyes pop. So I'm wearing blue on first dates.
My son doesn't even know that yet, but he will. So obsessed with blue. It's a problem. It's crazy. But at the same time, like we banned the word princess. Like if anybody was like, look at you, you cute little princess, I taught Rose to say, I'm not a princess, I'm an empress. Like I wasn't into it.
Well, we had a guest on the show, Empress, and she would be loving hearing that.
That's amazing.
Or I'm not a princess, I'm a queen. There was different iterations of it that we went through.
Yeah.
And if anybody called my daughter a princess, I'd say she's not a princess. Like I was that asshole parent.
Nobody ever called my kid that. But I was also like, because I did this whole interview for this thing about princesses, and they were like, because she had a princess birthday party, and they were just like, you're really leaning into it. I'm like, I'm not. It's what makes her happy.
Mm-hmm.
If I tried to take away her princess dress, that would have been the equivalent of someone taking away my tough skin corduroy pants when I was a kid. Like I was not wearing dresses. I wanted jeans or corduroys. And if someone had taken that away from me, it would have felt like I would have been unhappy. So it's like, to me, I'm going to give her what she wants.
Yeah.
And then, but I'm also going to teach her she can be a strong woman, and that she never comes second, and she's not like gender doesn't matter. And, like she's going to get all the lessons, but like, I just never thought of it as that big a deal.
As someone with no kids and a few years down the line from being a parent, I'll give my advice as a fake Fox parent. But I understand that aspect of you want to do what your kids, or you want to make your kids happy. And as long as it's not dangerous, you can support that. Obviously, if your kids love throwing knives, you're probably not going to buy them, sharp throwing knives. But
Probably not.
Robin, if your, daughter wants to have a princess themed party, who's saying she can't? If that's what makes her happy.
It made her very happy.
Like I have also heard the argument that parents of non-binary kids or parents of trans kids are pushing this on their kids, which is the most ridiculous thing. Like I said, I banned the word princess. I tried to give my daughter the option of wearing boys' clothes if she wanted, but I would never push it on her.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine a parent in the world who would push something that their child doesn't like on their child unless they were afraid that society might not think it's okay.
Unless they were Tiger Woods
I think
dead.
that sums up a lot of those parents who try to force their kids to be someone that they're not because they're afraid of what society will say.
Yeah.
And I get it. I had a dog, so I have kind of a dog parent. He's since passed, so I guess not anymore.
Mine passed too.
Weird segue on
Sorry.
that.
Mine
But
just
anyways,
died too.
like I understand that aspect of you want to be as protective as possible to that person that you're taking care of. If them being who they are intrinsically inside might come with a group of people hating against who they are, you're probably going to want to try to help them hide that a bit because you're afraid of what could happen if they're truly themselves. But as we found through, these many years of figuring out, LGBTQ is they just have to be themselves and they have to figure out what it means to be themselves because that's how they're going to be their best version of themselves.
Yep.
Exactly. And we need to get society on board.
Yeah.
So that these children
those kids end up committing
dying.
suicide.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's such a high rate of young LGBT youth that they commit suicide.
Well, I would like to welcome, get some more positivity.
Sorry.
I would like to welcome to the show Robin Hopkins and Jamie Kilton, hosts of the weekly podcast, If These Ovaries Could Talk, and co-authors of the book, If These Ovaries Could Talk, the things we learned about making an LGBTQ family. Robin and Jamie, welcome to Water Cooler Talk.
Wait, thank you, Adam. It's fun to be here.
Oh my God.
We just
it's like we swear our podcast and book are fun. We're like the saddest, and suicide.
We got so serious.
I know, sorry.
What's happening?
Sorry.
We'll just power through it. One of the sayings you both revisit on many different episodes of your podcast is love makes a family. You can even find it on a throw pillow in your shop and on a baby onesie.
Can.
And you also talk about the concept of the changing nuclear family that was popularized throughout America in the 20th century, the idea of a family that consists of two parents, mostly defined as a married mom and dad and their children. So as we progress in how we view the nuclear family, how does that saying of love makes a family play into its progression?
Well, for us, we have to choose families chosen.
Mm-hmm.
In order to make a kid, we need help. And we might need a part from somebody. And so maybe in some of our families, it's a friend that donates sperm to a lesbian couple or
an egg.
Yeah.
Or a womb.
Or we, sometimes LGBTQ couples maybe don't they lose their parents because they're out. And so then you create a family that's around you that becomes, honorary aunts and uncles.
Chosen family.
Yeah. So we really, whether it's the actual physical creation of our families to the dynamics, because we don't have to prescribe to the roles that a standard heterosexual couple would do. We're not like, oh, the man works and we're like, what do you do best? Love just comes in at all these different angles of how we create our families.
Yeah. And we're not saying that all heterosexual couples follow those norms, but it is a standardized norm that is still kind of prevalent.
It's standardized
today.
for a reason.
Yeah, exactly. The dad does this, the mom does this. And
It's
things
the
have changed
assumption.
in households,
Mhm.
but
As, we progress humanity wise and we get better at respecting, everyone across the board on who they want to be, I think it's important that we bring a sense of love because I have a lot of family and there's some family that I don't like that part of my family. If any of those people are listening and they think it's you, it's probably you.
It's definitely you.
But I have friends and I have people I care about that I love that aren't necessarily the typical family, quotes on that, the typical family that are my family because they understand that dynamic of surviving life is all about helping each other. And it's not about, figuring out whenever a parent dies and the kids are going through all their stuff and I deserve this and I deserve this and having that fight. But it's about, bringing forth a sense of companionship, and it doesn't have to be related to blood.
Yeah, it's companionship on purpose. And
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's
love
a very
makes
good
the
saying.
family. And that's what we say.
That's
all
the next
time.
throw pillow.
Yeah. Ooh. This is a good one for a throw pillow, though. Another thing we always say is there are no accidental pregnancies. There are no accidental families in the LGBTQ world. Maybe there's one.
There's a couple, but
random
very,
one
very rare.
somehow happened. But it's our families are so intentional from the moment we get together, even from the planning of our families, from everything. It's so intentional. There are so many decisions to be made. So there are no mistakes. Very intentional, and love makes it. It's all made
That's a
out
very
of
good
love.
point, Jamie. You're choosing love right from the get-go.
Yeah.
You're not forced into this family. You're choosing this family because you want to be in this family. And that creates a better family.
And we're choosing parenting.
We're having a conversation or two.
And then we're spending lots of money to make these families. You know what I mean? Like we have stories, of two men who pay upwards of $200,000 for surrogacy. Even adoption, people are always like, go adopt. It's free. It's not free. You pay and pay and pay.
Hard.
Yeah, and not easy. And like even I had a very easy situation, like where I got sperm from a bank. We still spent over $6,000 a kid. And that was a decade ago. It's probably
Even
double
more
that now. We are on purpose choosing to be parents, and that transfers over into the way that we parent. Which is why it's so crazy that people don't want us to be families. Like we're some of the best parents on the planet. I mean, not Jamie and I.
Well,
not Jamie and I, but other LGBTQ
too much blue.
folks.
Too much blue, Jamie.
Yeah.
Too much blue.
I know. You didn't hear me yell at my son this morning, but
oh my God, I was yelling at one of my kids right by the door, and then I opened the door to get the elevator, and there was like a woman standing there, and I was like, "Morning."
yeah, it always happens.
So I was like, it was 100% just yelling at him.
So many times I'm like, I'm sorry. Did you hear that?
I didn't even bother. I was just like, "Hey, how are you?" Because I was just like, I know you heard it. We all know.
It's so hard, but they're not mistakes. Not to judge people who do have children that were mistakes. We're not saying that you're a bad parent just because the pregnancy was a mistake. I actually have a very good friend who had, I have a lot of friends who have.
You just did that. I've got a gay friend from upstate New York. That's what you just literally did.
I have a lot of friends whose first kids were mistakes and everything turned out great. So we're not judging that. We're just saying,
yeah,
that doesn't really happen in our community that much.
And just so you know, if you listen to our podcast or read the book, Jamie is always apologizing to every
apologizing,
qualifying to every fraction of society. We didn't mean to offend you.
We don't want to offend you. We're just
You're beautiful.
Listen, everybody's beautiful. I love everybody, and I want to make that clear.
I never assume I'm offending people.
If someone's offended by what I say, I just say, "Hey, you're offended," and I'm gonna keep moving forward. But I think
I'm working on
I think the aspect of what are both of our shows kind of entail is like this aspect of humor. How do y'all view humor in the scope of having these conversations and kind of making these conversations, easier, if that's the right word? Because I always like that saying that Kevin Hart says, if we can laugh together, we can love together. But there's also an aspect to that of, at least I believe, of eventually we do have to stop laughing and have those tough conversations. So how do you think humor kind of plays into that?
I see it as a necessity.
Yeah, it's critical. I mean, we've had really serious topics. Like we've talked about people who've lost babies, like stillborns, or a couple who had a kid for cancer, couple that had a foster child for 2 years, and then the system made a mistake and the mother came back and took the baby to a rehab facility. I mean, these are really,
people who still can't get pregnant.
And we find a way to laugh in the middle of these conversations.
Not at them.
With them. With them.
But
yes. There's a time and place for the seriousness of it, but then there's also like we approach all of this like, let's have fun. Let's love each other. And we're all coming from a safe place. And if we make a mistake, let's clean it up. And then let's just see what happens. And that lends itself to humor, love, joy, like all kind, like it makes the conversation interesting.
Candor.
Yeah.
Because the more we can have fun together while we're having these discussions, the more we can all open up and be truthful and real. We
had a couple guests, like what was his name? What was his name? He wrote the book. Gay Like Me, Richie Jackson. And in the middle of recording, and meanwhile, this was pre-COVID, we were in a studio with like big boom arms coming down.
We looked real legit.
Yeah, we did. We weren't, but we did.
Legit.
And he goes, oh my God, I forgot I was on a podcast. I thought that was like the best compliment. Because he just was we were having such an awesome conversation. Mm-hmm. And it was so real and it was so deep. And we were still laughing.
And to your point, Robin, there at the end of that Mr. Potato Head story, when you mentioned, trans youth tend to have higher suicide rates, like that's a serious topic. But then you can talk about how ridiculous it has become that now all these states are banning transgender in sports because one or two transgender individuals win a race. Like that's in a sense like hilarious because the transgender population is less than or about 0.5%, I believe, of the U.S. population. And then transgender, athletes are like a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of that.
They make it seem like boys are clobbering girls all over.
There might be
the
more.
Olympics.
We just might not know them all.
Yes,
they
exactly.
might be
yes.
out there,
but still.
But still, it's kind of humorous how it's become such this huge issue, but it's such a small population that is potentially affected.
Yeah.
Obviously, trans youth tend to have more issues with gender dysphoria, so suicide rates are higher. So you can laugh, but then also see the seriousness of this is an issue.
It is an issue, but also to the point of how they're trying to ban trans youth on girls' teams. Like this is I feel like the only time in history where they are taking an interest in girls' sports at all. And it's because of are we kidding right now? Meanwhile, the U.S. men's soccer team didn't make it to the Olympics.
No, they stink.
But the women's did.
They stink.
But let's start banning those trans kids. Like what?
It doesn't even make sense what they're doing.
Well, yeah, and I think, looking at it, it's frustrating, but it's a laughable frustrating because it's like, come on, are we being serious? I think South Dakota, or what's the other state that recently did it? But it's ridiculous to the point where it's like you have to laugh to really get through how just stupid it is to tear down a group of people just because you're fearful of your child hanging out with a trans youth and they're going to turn trans. That's not how it works.
That's not how it works. Once more, these are babies.
And if it works that way,
children.
Every gay person, well, not every, but maybe a lot of gay people wouldn't be. If it worked that way, if you could just change your mind.
Oh,
people would change their mind.
A funny tweet. Somebody, I think
not everybody,
reposted it in our story. Somebody, oh my God, now I'm going to mess it up. It was, oh God, it was about.
I have a corrections corner specifically for these.
It was about some movie that has a gay character. oh no, it's Lil Nas. Lil Nas has his new video.
The new video.
X, yes.
And the mother said, "Did you watch the video?" And he was like, "Yeah, so good." And she was like, "Well, about the controversy, they're afraid that it's going to turn everybody gay." And the kid said, "Oh my God, that's the dumbest thing I ever heard. That's like, then how come all the gay people who watch movies with straight romance aren't all of a sudden turned straight?" Right?
I know there's no logic, but that just tells you though it's fear based.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's when people aren't logical, it's fear based.
Yeah.
That's part of the reason, by the way, why we do the podcast, why we wrote the book. There is a great corner of people who don't know any gay people and who've never met two moms with kids, and they need to see us. They need to see our families.
It needs to be normalized.
Yes, that we're just out there and we're doing the best we can and our kids are normal and just like your kids. Like the more they can see us in that way, I want to help those people. It's not their fault. It's only their fault if they've been educated and they choose to be homophobic and, but there's many people who haven't been educated, haven't been exposed, and they just need to know it's okay.
I have to say, like when we first started, I just wanted to share our stories. I actually I wasn't aware of how many people out there in the world don't like our families. I really wasn't aware of it until we put the podcast out there and started getting, we get some comments, we get some,
mm-hmm.
we get some trolls.
We get some trolls. I wasn't aware of the, I don't know, what do I want to say? The largeness of it.
Well, we live in a bubble. We have a lot of.
We're in New York.
Yeah, we're in New York. We have friends who are gay people with kids. We have, but even then though, like we're in the bubble in a safe space and my kids are in some progressive charter school, but we're only one of 3 LGBTQ families in the whole school. And that's in a bubble.
In our grade.
Yeah, well, that's a lot.
Mm-hmm. But one of them, they just moved. Well, they're moving at the end of the year.
I know. We keep tabs on each other at the parent teacher. We're like, "Hi, good to see you."
You're invested because you're choosing this family. You're choosing to be loved by this family. But I think this is a perfect. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to make a joke. It always turns out like we tried to push those kids together. The 3 kids who have it's another gay mom couple and a gay dad couple. We tried so hard to make them all friends. They're not friends. They're not like into each other.
I did too. There was another kid in my son's class in one of the 3 families. And I said, "You didn't tell me there was a kid in your class that has 2 moms." He goes, "Yeah, he's weird."
Yeah, like,
and I was just like,
you're like, we tried so hard. I was like,
it was just not happening.
She has 2 moms too. Okay, whatever.
Great. I'm not drawn to that kid.
He likes G.I. Joes, and I like to play with G.I. Joes.
Right,
I want to play with G.I. Joes. But before we move on, myself and Water Cooler Talk are on a mission to help give back to different parts of the community and those who have helped build our show to where it stands today. For each new episode of the podcast, the guests will bring with them a charity of their choice to represent. On the day of the episode going live, Water Cooler Talk will give a donation to the charity in honor of the guest, as well as a global platform to spread a message of love, hope, and togetherness. And we hope you listening to this episode can join in to help spread their message to your own personal audience. Robin and Jamie, your chair of choice for today's episode is the Trevor Project. Do you mind explaining a bit about what they do, the Trevor Lifeline, and why they're a cause we're supporting?
First of all, this is amazing that you do this.
I know, it really
I think
is.
we need to do this.
I'll take the ego boost for giving to charity.
Yeah, it's great. The Trevor Project just goes, we've been talking about it this whole interview. So Robin.
Yeah. I mean, so they basically are supporting to make sure that LGBTQ youth.
I think you know how to say that by now.
Oh my God, I know LGBTQ. They work on trying to make sure that there's less of a suicide situation for youth and
support for LGBTQ.
It's just a wonderful organization. And so whenever possible, we try to prop them up and bring them into our conversations. I mean, it's in terms of youth, it's a problem. They need to know that, that's why that whole "It Gets Better"
They need
campaign.
to know it gets better. And they need help because some kids are thrown out. A lot of kids are thrown out. And not just that. There's so many. It can be hard.
Yeah,
depending on where you are. So yeah, we got to prop them up, help them out. These are the babies.
Hence the Trevor Project. Well, they're doing it. We're not. We talk about it, and then Trevor Project does the real hard work.
I appreciate you bringing them up in this conversation, so people can kind of have a resource to learn more about this. All right. Well, I think we have I don't know where I was going with that. Are you both ready to get to these? These are the type of things that get cut out of the final.
I think we've rubbed off on you where you're like, I don't know where I was going. That's we never know where we're going.
But are you both ready to jump into our final news story of the episode?
Yes.
Do it. Dive in.
This is from NBC News, February 2nd, 2021. Second grader expelled over crush on girl at Owasso Private School. Delaney Shelton said her 8-year-old daughter was expelled from Rejoice Christian School in Owasso, Oklahoma, after telling another female classmate that she had a crush on her. Delaney said she received a call from the school during the day to tell her that she had to pick up her daughter after an incident on the playground. When she arrived at the school, Rejoice Vice Principal Kelly Owens asked her how she, the mother, felt about girls liking girls. Delaney responded, "Well, if I'm being honest with you, I think it's okay for girls to like girls." And I mean, she, the Vice Principal Kelly Owens, looked disgusted and surprised at my answer. School officials told her to take her daughter home and to not bring her back the next day. When they got home, Delaney said her daughter started to cry and told her that a teacher said, "The Bible says that you can only marry a man and you can only have kids with a man. And it's a sin for girls to like girls. And it's not in the Bible. And it's not okay in God's eyes." Delaney added, she was crying and just asking me if God still loved that. That's every time I read this, it's tough to read. She was crying and just asking me if God still loved her. And if she was wrong for feeling the way that she does. The situation was heartbreaking. A day later, Superintendent Joel Pepin informed her that Rejoice Christian School would be ending their partnership with the Shelton family, including Delaney's 5-year-old son, because the family's beliefs did not align with that of the school's. Vice Principal Jelly, was her name Jelly? Did I think Kelly? Vice Principal Kelly Owens told Delaney that the school does not condone same-sex relationships on campus and that the school's handbook prohibits any form of sexual immorality, and students who do not follow these rules forfeit the privilege of attending the school. Here's where it gets interesting, listeners. At the time of the release of this article, the school's handbook, which is available online, was restricted and could not be viewed firsthand. However, based on screenshots shared by the mother Delaney, it appeared that the school has changed the handbook since it parted ways with the Shelton family, though neither version addresses same-sex relationships. In a screenshot taken by Delaney the day her daughter was expelled, the handbook stated that boyfriend-girlfriend relationships while at school are prohibited, and then in a second screenshot, it states that students could build relationships based on purity, but that inappropriate displays of affection are not allowed. So a conspiracy is afoot. The family hasn't pursued legal action, but said the possibility is still on the table. However, it remains unclear whether a lawsuit would go over in the family's favor. Private religious schools are governed by slightly different standards than public schools and could be exempt from some federal non-discrimination protections, even if they do receive federal funding. I believe this school received some PPP funding. Private schools are not funded by the government, but instead through student tuition, endowments, and donations. In addition, Oklahoma's non-discrimination laws do not include LGBTQ individuals. Religious schools are not required by federal law to publish their position on same-sex relationships, for example, so many parents enroll their kids in a religious school and are later caught by surprise if the school states that it is opposed to same-sex marriage. As for Delaney's 8-year-old daughter, both her and her brother have since been enrolled in a new school and felt so loved by the outpour of support received from communities both local and national. Delaney says that she might change as she grows, speaking of her daughter, but she wants her to know that no matter who she ends up loving, She will be supported and loved no matter what. That kind of goes into, what you talked about, and love makes a family. Like, at least from this snapshot of what we have with the mother, this seems like a very supportive mother. And whatever decisions these two kids, the 8-year-old and the 5-year-old, decide to make in their life, there's a good chance that they're going to be very supported. And I think that's, regardless of what society or schools may say, having that loving relationship in the home means, these kids have a chance to have a good life.
Yep.
Yeah. This story is so heartbreaking to hear
on many levels.
Especially because, yes, she now knows that her mother will accept her.
Mm-hmm.
However, she is in the world. Her mother's going to accept her. But the harsh lesson this little 8-year-old just learned is that the world might not, and that your chances in life might be very much altered because you showed the world who you really were. And that's heartbreak. I want to cry.
It's not just that, though. They took it a step further and said, not just like you're going to be discriminated against. They were like, Jesus won't love you.
Yeah.
I mean, like, that's a horrific and horrible thing.
And also, your brother is expelled, so it makes it seem like her choices are ruining not only her life, but other people in her family's lives.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. You upheaved your whole family's life. Like, that's not how I feel. But
yeah,
this poor little girl just learned the most terrible lesson.
But the upside, though, is like you said, Adam, is that she's got a mother who said wonderful and affirming things to her, and that, she knows she'll always be loved. Thank God, and thank God they pulled her out. I mean, I know she was expelled, but that, but they didn't try to be like, keep my kid in, because it's like, it's just, it's upsetting just on other levels too. Yes, the girl, and that they wouldn't win a case. Private organizations still, it goes back to the cake baking thing.
Oklahoma still doesn't have anti-discrimination laws for LGBTQ.
But that people can still say, I am going to have this yacht club and no Jewish people can come.
Right.
I'm going to have this bakery and I will not make your gay cake. I don't know. I get
Who doesn't want a gay cake?
Everybody wants a gay cake. A rainbow. Cakes are made.
Well, I think there
gays.
is, kind of to that point, Robin, I think there is a bit of, I'm all for that bakery not wanting to make a gay cake. I'm all for a bakery being established right next to them that only focuses on gay cakes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I think in this capitalistic world, I think we have that option, even though we may not like, somebody expressing that free speech. I think as we address free speech in general, I think we have to be supportive, even if we don't necessarily agree with it. It doesn't make it okay. Yeah, the bakery, the school, they're obviously in the wrong in this situation. It is an incredibly heartbreaking situation. You kind of have to figure out where that line is between what's okay and what isn't okay. And, this school, what they're doing, being so against this little girl, just because she told another girl she had a crush on her, didn't do anything inappropriate. Yes, perfect. Thank you, Jamie. Didn't do anything inappropriate, but now her life is being, or they tried to tear down her life for just having a crush on another girl. Like, that's where it's been taken it way too far.
Yeah.
Yeah. First of all, I want somebody to please open up a bakery next to that bakery
I
called
know.
Gay
Right
Cake.
next door.
Just
No,
big
it's
sign,
a gay bar. Put a gay bar.
Gay
like
cake,
Rawhide.
one on each side. And it's called Gay Cake Bakery and the Gay Bar. And it just overrides everything. Somebody do that.
Well, but my wife agrees wholeheartedly with you that, like, you should have the right to not make my gay cake if you don't want to, if you're a private business.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where I stand on it, because I do feel like,
to our kids?
I know, but it's saying it's like you have that right to do it in terms of a business. But I'm like, where's the line then? If you get federal funding, if you like, where is the line when, like, if it's a country club that won't let Black people in, is that acceptable? It's just like, where is the line? And I don't know. I really don't know the answer to it, because I understand what you're saying about capitalism and, and things having their own ability to choose. But at the same time, like, isn't that going to just end up in like racism and homophobia? And
that's like, we're teaching the next generation how to discriminate. That's what it comes down to for me.
That's a good point.
We're just teaching more discrimination. The more we let this happen, the more the youth are going to see it and continue that on. And the thing is, the folks who do this, who use their religion as a reason to not make a gay cake, don't see this as discrimination.
No, they think it's there. But then it's
And
like,
that's
but
the
then it's like you
problem.
had that lady who wouldn't issue the marriage
the clerk.
certificate because of her religious things. She had a government job.
She had a government job, exactly. And
yeah, you go
that's
get a different
totally
job then, honey. Like, go get a different job.
Yeah, don't be in that job if you can't, follow the rules of that job. When it comes to religion, it's so weird. Even like what this teacher said to that little girl, I think she said, the Bible says that you can only marry a man. According to this teacher, gay men have all the right to marry a man. And you can kind of,
There you go.
I think like what they use is like something from Leviticus, where it's
Yeah,
an abomination for a man to
lie next
sleep,
to a man,
lie with
yeah.
another man. But I can also interpret that as it's an abomination for a married man to sleep with somebody who's not their partner.
yeah.
It gets very confusing because I can interpret something one way and somebody else can interpret something another way. Boom. Now we have religious people. I know you guys recently had a live talking about the Pope not blessing same-sex marriages. You can pick and choose what you want, but then it just becomes such a more tough conversation than it actually needs to be. I'm not a religious individual, but I look at a situation like the Bible and I say the Bible is about a lesson about being a good person and respecting thy neighbor. And that's what the focus should be.
Yeah.
It gets so construed. It gets
I
so
mean,
lost.
but you're right that everybody, it's freedom of religion, freedom of speech, and everyone has they can believe what they want to believe. I always look at it like if your behavior impacts another person, then you shouldn't be allowed to do it. If it, that's how I feel about
Negatively.
masks. It's negatively. If you we wear masks because I could give you COVID. That's why I wear it. In the same way that you can't drive drunk because you could kill another person. That's why there's speed limits and we legislate, in my opinion, when your behavior can hurt another person. That's what I try to look at it for. And so it does it gets real dicey with the private organizations though. It really does. Like, can you just have your religion where you believe weird stuff and you should be able to have it? But I don't like that. What I don't like about the story is that then you took your religion and you shamed some little kid. But you did sign up for a private school based on a religion that says they don't care for LGBTQ folks. So it's I'm a little bit wondering why she would be surprised.
Well, that's the thing in that article, or maybe it was a different article about this same story, that they did say that a lot of people, when they sign their kids up, don't look for the when you're signing your pre-K and kindergartner up for school, you're not looking to see what their policy is.
But if it's a religious school, wouldn't that come
not
to your
always,
mind?
because you would think so, but some people who don't have it on their radar,
Sure.
they're straight.
Yeah.
You're not like us. Like we
Yeah.
have that on our radar. We're going to check.
Yeah,
and
that's
see.
that's something you think about, but
you don't know your
that's
kid's gonna
something
be gay.
you might not think about. And also, you get into, I know this is a private school, but you get into schools where it's like, well, I can only really choose from 2 or 3 schools to send my
Yes.
kid. And as a parent, I'm assuming you're wanting to send your kid to the best possible school.
Yes.
And you don't necessarily look and see what their LGBTQ policy is, because nobody expects their children to come out as gay when they're 4. I mean, maybe some people do. I mean, like we think about it.
Well, yeah,
but-
that's the thing. Yeah, this is a 8-year-old girl. The mother even mentioned, like, she truly doesn't even understand why she
Right.
is getting in trouble for this.
Yeah.
Right.
So, maybe she doesn't truly understand how she feels. Maybe later in life, she'll end up being straight. Maybe she
Yeah.
won't. Maybe she'll, end up
this
having
could
a wife.
just be like a crime. Who
cares?
knows? Yeah, none
and
of
now
it's even
this girl's
relevant.
got a complex either way.
Well, in that article,
So-
though, they said, though, that I think if the mom had said, "Oh, I'm against that," they might have kept her. They were disturbed.
Oh, good. You want to
by
teach
the
your
fact-
child to deny her identity too. Good. We're good. You can
Yeah.
stay.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Alexa was going off there, and I don't know what's going on. It's like all of a sudden, Alexa, stop.
Alexa, the third guest coming in.
Oh my God, I know.
Well, both of you having children, what level of responsibilities do schools play in shaping your children? Because, I mean, your child's at school for, what is it these days, like 6 to 8 hours?
Well, not right
I
now.
I mean, obviously not
COVID, but-
not
Right now it's about
but
12 minutes in between
quote,
video
normal
games.
times.
Yeah, 6 to 8 hours somewhere there.
It's a big portion of their lives.
I mean,
School.
schools are responsible in the same way that I think parents are ultimately responsible, and schools are shaping a portion of it. But my kids, they're talking about, my older is in 6th grade, and they're talking about religion right now, different religions. They're talking about non-binary. They're talking about, because it's a progressive school, so they are talking about all that stuff.
great.
I think it's great that happens at our school, and we're lucky. Like you said, not everybody gets choice. Like if I lived in a small town, whatever the curriculum is, is probably what my kids are getting.
I think it's a bonus if your school is reiterating the lessons you're teaching your children at home. I think it's a bonus, and I don't think it's a given. My kids are younger. Mine are 7 and 3. So my 3-year-old's not even in school yet, and my 7-year-old's second grade. And I've noticed that their library is not as inclusive as I would like it to be. I'd like them to have more books about all gender spectrums, and I would like a book that has 2 moms in it or 2 dads in it, and they don't have those books. And so I've talked many times with Robin about bringing books to the library, which I haven't done yet, but it's on my mind.
We had a guest on our live stream a couple weeks ago who talked about how to work with your school to have them be more inclusive. It starts with the teacher, and then you work up to the principal, and then whoever's like shaping the curriculum. But it is really helpful, at least for us, because, one of my kids has talked about how it feels when they are like being singled out and they're talking about othered in these conversations, or like when they're talking about just a more heterosexual family, how they can feel less left out. But I don't put that education onus on the school. I put things in place in my kid's life. They go to a summer camp that is for kids of LGBTQ families so that it's in their life. We talk about it a lot. Like, we make sure that the education happens in our house for our kids. Our kids aren't the ones that need to be educated because our kids are in it. It's the other kids that need the education that don't get it. That's what's so funny about
their
it.
families aren't necessarily talking about this at home.
I mean, because
why would you if it's not it's not something that you're going to talk about? Unless,
I mean, I don't talk about Russian culture because I don't know it.
I don't know it.
I'm not like,
when Russia takes over, you're going to be so disappointed that you didn't, Robin.
I know.
I'll be like, damn, I should have got in on that sooner.
But at the same time, you want your kids to see themselves reflected in their school environment. So however
That's a very good point.
turns up, whether it be a book that's in their library, or I don't even know what else it could be. Like, you want
speakers
if
or
they're
topics.
talking about somebody in history like Audre Lorde, it would be great if they're not afraid to say she was also a lesbian, so that our kids can hear that. Oh, wow, this person in history.
She wasn't just a lady with a lady who lived in her house and they were just friends.
With that really good friend Ruth, who stayed with her all the time.
So that it's reiterated and talked about in positive ways outside of the home.
And outside of Gay Pride Month.
Well, there's that
But
too.
I mean, but that also goes to, and somebody brought this up on one of our shows recently, and I hadn't thought about that, goes to sex education as well. Like, are they talking about like sex education? Are you only talking about heterosexual? And that's like a can of worms, because people don't even want them to talk about sex, period, let alone bring in gay sex. I mean, can you imagine the outrage?
Oh, I can't even imagine.
I'm outraged.
Well, to your point, Jamie, about, the books in schools and kind of connecting to our Mr. Potato Head conversation, there's nothing wrong with putting a book in a library about, 2 moms, and as long as you're not forcing a kid to read that book, if eventually they come upon it and they're like, oh, I would like to read this book, I don't see nothing, or I don't see anything wrong with that. It's just, you're giving those kids those options, because there are more options than just 1, 2. There's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
And what if little Susie is gay and she's afraid to tell people? And then she goes to her library and she sees the story of
you got real deep there. You could see Susie, can't you?
Susie. I don't know why I chose Susie. That's my mom's name too, Sue. But like, what if she's grappling with it, her little 4th grade mind, and she sees this book about, what's that book I love? It's a flamingo, but he's trying to fit in with the pigeons. It's a really sweet book, and she sees that, and it speaks to her. What about the children who are grappling with their sexuality or with their gender? Think of those kids and how much they can be helped with affirming books and materials in their schools when they might not be getting the affirmations at home.
In general, I'm just a huge fan of education around the board, or what is it? Along the board? All around the board?
On the board?
No one actually knows. But it'll
come to me and I'll shout it out in an inappropriate moment.
But I'm all for, education and being able to have as many options as possible. Like, when I do my research, I use DuckDuckGo because I don't know what Google's going to lead me towards. I want that unfilteredness because I want to have as many possible options to learn about something, because I know I'm going to be a more informed person. I'm able to relate more if I can hear those stories unfiltered, or having, a book written by, 2 moms. I know there's there's other books written in the LGBTQ space, not just by two moms. But anyways, having all those options allows me to be more sympathetic, empathetic, one of those, towards those individuals.
Yes.
And it makes me a better person as a straight individual, even though that's not something that affects me, but it might affect my friend. It might affect, my family members down the line. It just makes you a better person to have those experiences and to hear about those experiences, because like this little girl, she's an 8-year-old little girl. She should just be worrying about playing with potato head toys, non-gender potato head toys, instead of having to ask her mom, why was I expelled for school for just telling another girl I had a crush on her?
Yeah. And why does Jesus no longer love
Why
me?
does Jesus hate me?
Yeah. I mean, that's the part that's to me the most offensive. I don't know.
Thank God I never worried about Jesus' love.
I didn't either. It's funny. I mean, I just assume it's
Because
there.
we would really be grappling with that forever.
Well, Jamie and Robin, thank you for taking the time to share your perspective on some of the strangest and most interesting news stories the world has to offer in a productive and meaningful conversation. Listeners, if you would like to give Jamie and Robin's podcast, If These Ovaries Could Talk, a listen, you can do so by following them on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Ovaries Talk. Once again, on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Ovaries Talk. You can also visit their website, www.ovariestalk.com, buy one of those throw pillows, or better yet, order their book, If These Ovaries Could Talk, the things we've learned about making an LGBTQ family. And then make sure to remain after the corrections for a short teaser clip from one of their latest episodes. And then, of course, to make it easier for you, those links will be included in the description of this episode and on our website, www.watercoolertalkpod.com. So as someone with some sticky fingers, we can't finish this episode without me stealing a segment from your show. So Jamie and Robin, 30 seconds.
Oh my God.
Give us the elevator pitch for your book, If These Ovaries Could Talk, the things we've learned about making an LGBTQ family.
Okay, it's in 2 parts. The first half of the book is all about different ways in which you can make your LGBTQ family.
How we make them, the conversations.
The
everything.
second part.
And the second part is how you parent your LGBTQ as an LGBTQ
Now that you got
parent. Now that you got your kids, now what? That's literally what it's called.
And
right?
it's
something like that.
Also it's twofold in the sense that it has clips from other families, so you're going to get like a full view of
not
what
just us. You don't wanna
LGBTQ
hear us
families
talk
are
all the time.
and then you'll hear us too.
Yeah, we're in there, but there's other perspectives. And
Did we do it?
Well,
30
Perfect.
seconds?
I
Did we
think
do
that was
it?
around 30 seconds. I probably should have taken
Timed us.
note of when you started, but the time was needed. All right. As always, thank you to all my listeners for listening to another episode of Water Cooler Talk, the only such podcast on the internet, hosted by myself and guest hosted today by Jamie and Robin, where we take the strangest and most interesting real life news stories from around the world and, well, just try and have a good old conversation about some of those ideas discussed in those bizarre news stories. All right, Jamie and Robin, we are to the point, my favorite point of the show, where I hand off the show to you. Jamie, you said you were ready for this, so I'm hoping you are ready for this moment.
man.
But it is up to the
Well,
both
do you
of
have an
you
idea?
to close out the show however you see fit.
for how we close. I was just going to close it how we close ours.
Oh
but
yes.
with his
yeah.
podcast name.
Oh, okay. So how would we
But
do
I
that?
don't know because then
Okay.
it doesn't really work. Because
Well,
we do
how
for our,
we can
okay.
we'll do it in the middle.
Should we explain what we do?
Yeah, we always sign off he's literally having coffee now because we've like gone on to, and then maybe we can.
And this came our first episode we ever recorded, and we were both like, we don't know what we're doing. We were like, how do we end this? And then
We just did it.
We just did it, and it's not clever.
And Stacey and Shin made fun
of
of us really hardcore
Yeah.
for doing it.
Yeah. All right.
So we say eggs,
one of it. You said eggs. I went ovaries.
and then we say out.
So that's how we end every. It's so not funny or cool in any way.
And then we're usually making fun of ourselves, laughing as we leave.
yes. How do we do that with
We do
Water-
eggs,
water cooler talk?
ovaries, out.
Out.
Or we should let Adam say
Wait, water
cooler
talk
out.
Out.
How about that?
Okay.
Does that work?
Yes. All right. We have to do it all on 3 now. All right.
Okay.
Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Water
Water, cooler. Oh,
talk.
sorry.
Oh, wait, no,
Okay,
wait.
I'll do
person-
talk. I'll
okay.
do talk, and
Okay.
then we'll all do out together.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll do cooler. Okay.
And I'm doing water. Okay. Water
Cooler.
Talk
out.
All right. Well, until next time, listeners. Peace.
This is the story of a podcast that takes weird news from across the world. And while many of these stories may seem fake, they're absolutely not, because they're real.
What an episode, what a guest, what a time. Thank you to Robin and Jamie for calling in to talk about those strange and interesting news stories. As always, make sure to support their podcast, If These Ovaries Could Talk, by following the links in the description of this episode or by going to our website at www.watercoolertalkpod.com. And as always, make sure to support their charity of choice, The Trevor Project, all it takes is $5. The price of coffee. I think the price of coffee is actually going up, so we might have to change this. Or sharing their mission with another person around the water cooler, wherever those pesky water coolers may be. But anyways, to the corrections. During the first conversation discussing the outrage over Mr. Potato Head, Mr. Potato Head was first invented in 1949 by George Lerner and distributed by Hasbro starting in 1952 as parts to actually put into a actual potato. It wasn't until 1964 that Hasbro switched to a plastic potato because they realized kids playing with rotting vegetables might not be the most marketable and safe product. During the guest introduction portion of the conversation, the states that banned transgender girls from playing on girl interscholastic sports teams include Tennessee, Mississippi, Arkansas, South Dakota, and Idaho. And unfortunately, 34 states are considering a ban as well during the 2021 legislative season. You know, I do just kind of want to add on to my original thoughts from the episode. The bigger picture is being completely missed by these right now 5 states. The essence of sports, and I'll specifically speak to high school sports where most of the youth participate before sports become just crazy competitive, is the benefits that come from participation in those sports. It's not always about being the best. I think it's, around 7% of high school athletes go on to play at the next level. And I'll give them a few percentage points. So 90% of kids that play high school sports will never go on to play that same sport competitively at the next level. Sports are about learning valuable lessons, creating these healthy mental and physical mindsets, and feeling that you belong to something greater. Why are we closing the door to any kid that wants to reap those benefits? Make it make sense. And finally, during the second conversation discussing the influence of schools on children, the exact Leviticus passage is Leviticus 18:22. All right, Water Coolians, that's another Crisis Corner. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen to another episode of Water Cooler Talk. Once again, thank you to Robin and Jamie for calling into the studio. And I don't know why I'm talking like that. And talking about some of these strangest and most bizarre news stories the world has to offer. But anyways, that's your corrections. That's your episode. So get out of here.
This is the story of a podcast that takes weird news from across the world. And while many of these stories may seem fake, they're absolutely not, because they're real.
Without further ado, here's a short clip of Robin and Jamie's podcast, If These Ovaries Could Talk.
I was one of the people who believed I would never be divorced. Like I thought it was no one in my family had been divorced.
Robin and I were
just talking about this.
Yeah.
How you can never be too sure.
Right.
You think you won't.
Right.
But
and
how do you really know?
No, and my mother died when I was 10. It was such a shock to the system, and everything got unearthed at that age. And so here we were breaking up when the kids were in that age range. And, in the end, I think they all decided, and when we talk about it, they're like, it's better this way. I'm like, that's right. And Kelly is happy, and Ann is a great partner for her. They love to travel. I do not like to travel. Right. Every time I want to go to Miami, I have a house there. And so I was like, well, it's vacation. We're going to Miami.
Yeah, we're going to our other house.
Exactly. I'm not going to go
Not going to Europe.
Right. I'm not going to Europe where I can't speak the language.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to say it could be my spleen in French.
Or the food's going to be weird. You're like, what is
Yeah.
this pepper? This isn't pepper.
Listen, I'm with you 100% on the travel thing. People are like, when you're rich, don't you just want to go see the world? I'm like, no.
Eggs, ovaries out.